Children of the light, hear these words that rise not from fear, but from truth, for truth is the sword that parts darkness from understanding. In every life there comes a moment when shadows seem to move behind familiar faces, when the footsteps of those you know sound different, when intentions, once open, fold into secrecy, and in that hour you may feel alone, uncertain, or betrayed. But listen carefully. Not every hidden action is a threat. Not every secret is woven against you. There are times when someone close to you walks a path you cannot yet see, a path of justice, a path of duty, a path that requires silence. They may be working with the guardians of earthly law, not to harm you, not to undermine you, but to uphold what is right in a world that trembles under the weight of wrongdoing. You may sense the distance, you may feel the shift, but understand this: their secrecy is not a weapon, it is a shield, for there are battles fought in plain sight, and there are battles fought in quiet corridors, far from the comfort of open confession. And though their purpose is veiled for a season, their intention is to protect, not endanger, to prevent chaos, not to sow it, to safeguard peace, not to shatter it. So do not let fear claim your heart. Do not let suspicion corrode your spirit, for the schemes of the wicked collapse under their own weight, while the works of the righteous, though hidden, stand firm like ancient mountains. If you feel threatened, seek clarity. If you feel confused, seek counsel. If you feel alone, lift your eyes, for the heavens watch you, guard you, strengthen you. Stand tall. Stand calm. Stand in the light that cannot be disguised or extinguished, for nothing planned in truth will ever rise against you, and nothing planned in deception will remain standing. Peace to your mind, strength to your heart, discernment to your spirit. You are guided, you are protected, you are never walking alone. Hidden actions can serve justice, not betrayal, an idea that carries far more depth than it first appears to hold. In human experience, secrecy is often mistaken for deceit, and silence is too quickly interpreted as opposition. When someone withdraws, changes their habits, or carries a weight they do not share, it's easy for the mind to wander toward fear. Yet the truth is that not all hidden actions rise from treachery. Many are born from duty, compassion, and the difficult decisions that accompany responsibility. Justice does not always walk proudly in the open. Sometimes it moves quietly, deliberately, unseen, because its effectiveness depends on remaining unnoticed until the right moment. Consider how often the world's most important work is done beyond the public eye. Seeds grow in darkness before breaking the soil. Strategy is formed in quiet before it shapes a victory. A healer's efforts may begin long before symptoms are visible, and a guardian's watchfulness often protects without ever being recognized. In the same way, someone acting discreetly may be shielding others from danger or preventing unnecessary conflict. Their silence may not be a sign that they stand against you, but that they stand for something greater, something fragile, something that requires protection until the time is right. Justice, when carried with integrity, is rarely loud. It does not always announce itself. Sometimes it must avoid attention so that it can fulfill its purpose without interference. A person who chooses to act quietly may do so because revealing their intentions too soon could disrupt the process, place others at risk, or create confusion. This kind of restraint is not betrayal, it's a form of discipline. It shows an understanding that truth and fairness sometimes take time to unfold, and that patience is essential for both. There is also the simple fact that people guard the weight of responsibility differently. Some share openly, and others carry their duties privately to avoid burdening those they care about. A person may hold information close not because they are hiding something harmful, but because they want to shield others from worry. In this way, their hidden actions are an expression of protection, not secrecy for secrecy's sake. They may even be navigating a complex situation where revealing too much could jeopardize their ability to stay aligned with what is right. The human heart wants certainty, yet life often asks us to trust without it. And trust is most tested when we cannot see what someone else is doing or why they are doing it. But this is precisely the moment when discernment becomes essential. Instead of filling the gaps with fear, we are asked to consider possibilities beyond the negative. There are countless reasons a person might act discreetly that have nothing to do with disloyalty. Many of the most honorable motives require stillness, patience, and a kind of quiet courage. Sometimes, too, the path of justice involves navigating systems, responsibilities, or roles that demand confidentiality. A person may act subtly because their work requires discretion, because they are assisting in something meant to uphold safety, or because their involvement must remain unseen for a time. It is not betrayal but participation in a process that demands integrity and restraint. Their silence is not a wall but a temporary boundary that protects the unfolding of something necessary. It is also important to remember that justice is not always personal. Someone acting in a guarded way may be responding to issues that have nothing to do with you, even if their behavior affects your perception of the relationship. People live many lives within one lifetime: their inner life, their responsibilities, their private challenges, their moral decisions. Not all of these can be spoken aloud, and not all need to be. Sometimes a person walks their own path of right action, independent of explanation, because explaining too soon might distort or weaken the purpose behind it. Trust in such moments is not blind. It is chosen. It is the willingness to say, "There may be more happening than I can see, and I will not jump to conclusions rooted in fear." This trust does not ask you to deny your intuition or silence your awareness. It simply reminds you that not every hidden motion is an attack, and not every quiet step is a step away. Some are steps taken on behalf of justice, steps that require solitude to remain pure. Hidden actions motivated by justice are guided by a desire for balance, protection, and truth. They often require the person to carry burdens without acknowledgement, to work without praise, and to make decisions that may appear misunderstood until their purpose becomes clear. Such work requires strength, humility, and the willingness to be seen in an incomplete light. It is not the path of a betrayer, but the path of someone who understands that good can be fragile in the early stages of its formation. Those who serve justice quietly often do so because they see further than the moment. They act with consideration for consequences, not just appearances. They choose what is right even when it means accepting the risk of being misunderstood. Their hidden actions are not evidence of a divided heart, but of a commitment to a principle that requires their silence. They are not withholding truth from you. They are cultivating truth for everyone involved. And sometimes, when the time is right, what was once hidden becomes visible. The quiet effort emerges with clarity. The misunderstood actions reveal their purpose. What seemed like secrecy is revealed as responsibility. What looked like distance becomes recognizable as care. And the justice that was once growing in silence finally takes shape in the open. So when hidden actions stir uncertainty, remember this: secrecy is not the language of betrayal alone. It is also the language of protection, wisdom, responsibility, and quiet justice. Not every unseen movement is a threat. Many are the first steps of something righteous that simply requires patience before it can be revealed. Secrecy may be a shield, not a threat. Though many instinctively associate secrecy with danger, betrayal, or wrongdoing, its true nature is far more complex and nuanced. Secrecy is a tool, neither inherently good nor inherently harmful. What determines its character is the intention behind it, and in many lives, in many situations, secrecy exists not to injure, but to protect. It forms a quiet barrier between vulnerability and chaos, between tender truths and harsh misunderstandings, between unfolding processes and the interference that might disrupt them. There are moments when words held back are gentler than words spoken aloud. Not every truth, especially one still forming, is ready to be carried by others. Some truths require time to settle, time to ripen, time to become steady enough to be shared. In this space, secrecy becomes a shield, one that safeguards the delicate, the uncertain, the still growing. A person may withhold information because it is incomplete, not because it is dangerous. They may choose to remain silent because they are still working through something internally, and sharing prematurely would only invite confusion or pressure. In this way, secrecy becomes an act of mindfulness rather than concealment. There are also situations where too much openness would expose someone to harm. Life is filled with individuals who navigate challenges quietly, not out of deceit, but out of necessity. For them, secrecy is shelter. It protects them from judgment, from misinterpretation, or from the heavy weight of other people's expectations. Many carry burdens they cannot yet articulate. They guard themselves not because they intend to push others away, but because they are fighting to stay intact. In such moments, secrecy is as essential as armor on the battlefield. It shields the vulnerable parts of the self until they are strong enough to stand without defense. Some forms of secrecy are rooted in responsibility rather than fear. People entrusted with sensitive tasks, leaders, caretakers, mediators, protectors, must often hold information silently to prevent disorder, dispute, or premature reaction. They make the difficult choice to speak less than they know because speaking too soon could ignite confusion or compromise stability. Their secrecy is not a withdrawal from honesty, but a stewarding of timing. It is not a threat, but an intentional pause, an understanding that clarity sometimes demands patience, and that truth must be revealed in the right moment to serve its highest purpose. Secrecy can also be a shield for compassion. There are times when someone chooses not to expose the mistakes of another, even when they have every right to do so. They may protect another's dignity, choosing silence over accusation. They may witness something fragile and decide that revealing it would cause more harm than good. In these quiet acts of restraint, secrecy becomes a cloak woven from empathy. It shields others from unnecessary pain and allows healing to take place in private. This type of secrecy is not a threat to trust. It is a deep expression of care. Human relationships thrive on communication, yet not every thought or feeling must be voiced the moment it arises. People often need time to process emotions before sharing them in a healthy, grounded way. When someone steps back, gathers their thoughts, or holds their experience inward for a time, it doesn't mean they are hiding something sinister. It means they are respecting the weight of their own emotions, ensuring they do not speak impulsively, or from a place of confusion. Their internal silence is a shield that protects the relationship from avoidable harm and allows for clearer, more loving dialogue later. Even in moments when secrecy feels uncomfortable, it is important to remember that discomfort does not equal danger. Humans are wired to fear the unknown, to fill silence with assumptions, to interpret gaps as threats. Yet much of this fear arises not from the situation itself, but from the mind's desire for control. It can be deeply challenging to trust when you cannot see every detail. And yet this trust, this willingness to believe in the benign nature of another's silence, is what transforms secrecy from a perceived danger into a neutral space where understanding can grow. Trust does not ask for blind acceptance. It asks for patience, curiosity, and a willingness to consider possibilities beyond fear. Secrecy used as a shield can also serve a broader purpose. Throughout history and daily life, progress often begins in quiet places. Plans are formed, solutions created, conflicts managed, and innovations develop behind closed doors. Not out of deception, but to protect the process until it can stand on its own. Imagine a seed exposed before it's rooted. It would wither before it had a chance to grow. In the same way, some actions must remain unspoken until they are ready to withstand the world. This is the nature of things that matter. They often begin in silence, protected from interruption or premature judgment. There is likewise a spiritual dimension to this idea. Growth, healing, and transformation often occur privately. The soul does much of its deepest work unseen. People evolve in moments they do not announce. They face inner battles no one else witnesses. They commit themselves to change, forgiveness, courage, or truth long before they speak of it. This sacred internal work is shielded by secrecy because it requires solitude. It requires a space free of outside noise. To emerge strong, the inner world must be allowed to develop without pressure. Silence becomes sanctuary. Of course, secrecy can be misused, but misuse does not define the essence of the thing. A shield can be wielded to protect or to hide cowardice. A flame can bring warmth or destruction. Water can nourish or overwhelm. The tool itself is not the enemy. The intention behind it shapes its meaning. To assume all secrecy is a threat is to misunderstand the nature of human experience. People are layered, complex, and full of reasons that are often invisible from the outside. When faced with secrecy, the wisest response is not suspicion, but discernment. Rather than assuming danger, one can consider both the possibility of protection and the possibility of misunderstanding. One can reflect on the character of the person involved, the context, and the patterns of trust already established. This balanced approach invites peace instead of fear, clarity instead of chaos. In the end, secrecy, when used with integrity, becomes an act of sheltering. It is the quiet barrier that allows vulnerable realities to strengthen. It is the boundary that preserves stability. It is the space in which decisions mature before being shared. It is the pause that protects relationships from impulsive words. It is the compassion that shields others' flaws. It is the container in which personal growth unfolds. Not every silence is a sign of danger. Not every quiet moment carries a hidden blade. Sometimes, secrecy stands not between you and harm, but between you and the storm. Fear must not guide interpretation of the unseen, for fear is a poor architect of truth. When confronted with uncertainty, those moments when events, intentions, or outcomes lie beyond your immediate view, the mind often longs for clarity, but clarity, when chased through fear, rarely arrives in its true form. Instead, fear constructs images that mirror its own shape. It fills the unknown with shadows of imagined danger, creating conclusions that feel urgent but have no true foundation. This is the trap of interpreting what is unseen through the lens of fear. It replaces patience with panic, intuition with distortion, and understanding with assumption. The unseen is a vast territory. It includes the hidden motives of others, the unfolding of future events, the internal process behind someone's silence, and even the mysteries of your own next steps in life. Much of existence operates outside your immediate perception. You cannot see the entire picture at once, and you are not meant to. Yet fear refuses to accept this. Fear demands certainty long before certainty is possible. It pushes the mind to fill the blanks with worst-case scenarios simply to relieve the discomfort of not knowing. But uncertainty itself is not a threat. It is merely a space of possibility, neutral, open, undefined. It is fear that paints it in harsh colors. If you allow fear to interpret every pause, every change in tone, every quiet moment, every delay, you will find danger where none exists. You will invent betrayal where there is only misunderstanding, create conflict where there is only silence, and imagine disaster where life is simply unfolding according to its natural rhythm. Fear does not seek truth, it seeks control. And it will create illusions if that is what it takes to feel temporarily safe. Human beings are wired to detect threats. This survival instinct was essential in ancient times. But in modern life it often misfires. The mind confuses emotional uncertainty with physical danger. It reacts to unknown behaviors the way it once reacted to unknown predators, with vigilance, suspicion, and heightened sensitivity. But not every unspoken thing is a predator. Not every unknown detail masks a threat. Much of the unseen is simply information that has not yet arrived, or a process that is still unfolding. Fear narrows perception. It reduces your ability to see nuances, to sense possibility, to recognize that the unseen might hold something beneficial. When fear is in control, the unseen becomes a canvas for dread rather than curiosity. You expect loss instead of gain. You anticipate failure instead of opportunity. You assume danger instead of neutrality. This creates a distorted landscape in which even gentle shadows appear monstrous. But when fear loosens its grip, the unseen becomes something entirely different. It becomes a space where patience can thrive, where trust can grow, where intuition, clear, centered, and not clouded by panic, can speak. Intuition operates calmly, fear operates frantically. Intuition considers, fear reacts. Intuition waits, fear rushes. When interpreting the unseen, you need intuition, not fear. You need openness, not assumption. You need steadiness, not emotional storms. There is a discipline in choosing not to let fear narrate the meaning of what you cannot immediately see. This discipline begins with acknowledging that your perspective is always limited, and that limited perspective does not automatically imply danger. Just because you cannot see the full path does not mean the path is unsafe. Just because someone is quiet does not mean they are withdrawing. Just because plans change does not mean something is wrong. Silence is not hostility, uncertainty is not failure, and waiting is not stagnation. When fear is your guide, you may find yourself reacting to phantoms, defending against threats that do not exist, preparing for outcomes that will never happen, or mistrusting people whose intentions are benign. Fear can damage relationships more effectively than any external force, because it places suspicion where reassurance is needed, and distance where openness belongs. It interprets every unknown as a warning rather than a waiting. Instead, cultivate the strength to allow the unseen to remain incomplete without rushing to define it. There is great maturity in being able to say, "I do not know what this means yet," and that is acceptable. This is not passivity, it is clarity. It is the refusal to let fear fabricate answers simply to escape the discomfort of uncertainty. Life often reveals its meanings gradually. If you allow time to unfold without forcing fearful explanations, you will begin to see patterns that you could not recognize before. What first appeared as silence may reveal itself as contemplation. What seemed like distance may be someone processing their own inner world. What felt like stagnation may be preparation. What looked like the end of something may be the beginning of something else. But these interpretations cannot arise when fear has already cast the narrative. Choosing not to interpret the unseen through fear also means recognizing your own inner stability. When you stand firmly within yourself, the unknown does not feel as threatening. You are not thrown off balance by every shift or shadow. You can sense the difference between intuition and anxiety. Intuition feels calm and clear. Anxiety feels chaotic and urgent. Intuition offers direction. Anxiety offers only warnings. When you learn to differentiate the two, you stop mistaking fear for wisdom. The unseen demands trust, not blind trust in others, but trust in yourself, in your discernment, in the unfolding of life, and in the resilience you possess. Even if the unseen were to hold challenges, you are capable of meeting them when they come. You do not need to imagine them in advance. Fear pretends that imagining danger is a form of preparation, but it is often a form of self-sabotage. You cannot prevent difficulty by worrying about it. You only weaken your spirit before any true difficulty arrives. Instead, let your interpretation of the unseen be guided by steadiness, patience, and an openness to possibilities beyond fear's imagination. Allow space for good outcomes, for neutral explanations, for unknown factors you cannot yet perceive. Let the unseen be a realm of mystery rather than threat, of unfolding rather than attack, of life's natural rhythm rather than a sign of danger. When fear no longer shapes your understanding of the unseen, you will navigate uncertainty with clarity instead of chaos. You will respond to life rather than react to shadows. You will see the world through truth rather than illusion. And the unseen will no longer be a source of dread but a quiet reminder that not all is meant to be revealed at once, and that this mystery too is part of your journey. Truth stands firm while deception collapses, for truth is built on foundations that do not shift with circumstance. It remains steady regardless of time, pressure, or scrutiny. Deception, on the other hand, is built on unstable ground. It must constantly adjust itself, bend itself, defend itself. It cannot breathe without fear of being uncovered. While truth holds its form naturally, deception must be maintained through effort, layered with excuses, sustained by tension. And anything that requires such constant reinforcement cannot endure forever. It eventually bends under the weight of its own contradictions. Truth has a quiet strength. It does not need to shout, nor does it need to convince. It simply is. Even when buried under misunderstanding or hidden beneath layers of doubt, it remains unchanged. Truth does not erode with time. If anything, time strengthens it. It rises through confusion like light through fog. It does not falter when questioned because its essence does not rely on perception. What is true remains true even if no one sees it, believes it, or acknowledges it for a season. Its endurance does not depend on approval. It depends only on its own reality. Deception, in contrast, is fragile. It may appear strong in the beginning because it is crafted with intention, carefully shaped to create a specific impression. But the more intricate the illusion, the more vulnerable it becomes. Every lie must be protected by another, every false image reinforced by yet another layer of pretense. Deception is a structure that grows heavier with every addition. Eventually, the very framework meant to sustain it becomes the source of its collapse. A small shift, a single truth revealed, a moment of clarity, any of these can cause the illusion to crack. In relationships, in decisions, in personal struggles, and in the unseen movements of life, this pattern repeats. Truth is consistent, deception is temporary. When you choose to walk in truth, even when it is difficult, you choose the path that will stand. Truth aligns your actions with reality, frees your mind from the burden of pretending, and allows your life to unfold with integrity. There may be challenges along the way, but they are challenges faced with strength and stability. When you choose deception, you walk a path that requires constant vigilance. You are always looking over your shoulder, waiting for the moment when the reality you've hidden will surface. And it always does. Even when deception appears beneficial, it seeds its own destruction. It creates internal tension, the kind that grows slowly but steadily. The mind knows when something is not aligned with truth. The heart knows. Even if you silence those signals temporarily, the imbalance remains. Deception corrodes from within, it drains energy, erodes peace, and disrupts clarity. You may maintain the illusion for a time, but at the cost of your own grounding. Truth, by contrast, restores peace. There is liberation in honesty, first with yourself, then with others. What is aligned with truth supports your spirit. What is misaligned weakens it. The collapse of deception is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is subtle. A realization dawns. A perspective shifts. Circumstances reveal what was hidden, and suddenly, the illusion no longer holds. In these moments it becomes clear that deception was never stable to begin with. It only appeared so because the full light had not yet touched it. Truth doesn't destroy deception with force, it simply illuminates it. And anything built on falsehood dissolves under illumination. This principle applies not only to personal matters, but also to the broader experiences of life. Misunderstandings, false assumptions, misjudgments, all of these are forms of deception, even if unintentional. They collapse when truth emerges. Sometimes people act based on incomplete information, believing they understand the situation, believing they know another's motives. But when truth comes to light, the structures built on these faulty interpretations crumble. This is why it is essential not to cling too tightly to initial assumptions. Truth will reveal itself in time, and when it does, it often brings a gentleness that deception cannot mimic. Consider how much suffering is born from clinging to what is false. People hold on to illusions about themselves, about others, about life's direction. They try to maintain narratives that no longer fit, relationships that have changed, identities that have evolved. But holding on to deception is exhausting. The more you resist truth, the heavier your burden becomes. Truth is not your enemy. It is the force that frees you from what cannot support you. Its firmness is not rigidity. It is reliability. Truth also has a natural way of aligning events. When you act in truth, life responds differently. Doors that should open begin to open. Paths that no longer serve you begin to close. You are guided toward what is real and away from what is not. Deception disrupts this alignment. It pulls you into situations and relationships that are not meant for you, creating detours and internal conflicts. Truth draws you back to your center. Even when the truth is difficult, it carries clarity. It removes confusion. It dissolves fear that is based on imagination rather than reality. Deception breeds more fear because it thrives on uncertainty. The moment you choose truth, even internally, you reclaim power. You regain direction. You stop being controlled by shadows. It is also important to recognize that truth does not require perfection. People often hide things because they fear judgment, wanting to present a polished image. But truth does not demand flawlessness. It welcomes genuine imperfection. It allows space for growth, for learning, for vulnerability. Deception, however, cannot tolerate imperfection because it must constantly maintain the illusion of control. This pressure becomes unbearable. When truth finally stands in full view, whether in your own life or in the lives of others, it does not collapse. It stands without effort, without defense. It has nothing to hide. Deception, once exposed, has no foundation left. It cannot withstand scrutiny because it was never real to begin with. Ultimately, truth liberates, while deception confines. One expands your life, the other shrinks it. One gives you solid ground, the other offers only shifting sand. When faced with uncertainty, confusion, or shifting circumstances, remember this principle. Truth will always endure. Anything false will fall away because it lacks the substance to remain. And in this natural process you are guided, not toward loss, but toward clarity. Not toward collapse, but toward what is real. You are protected, guided, and never alone. Not as a comforting phrase, but as a profound reality woven into the fabric of human experience. There is a presence, a strength, and a wisdom that moves with you even when you cannot feel it. This presence does not eliminate every challenge, nor does it shield you from every sorrow, but it ensures that you are never left to walk through life without support. Even in the quietest moments, when the world feels distant and the path ahead seems uncertain, something greater than your fear is standing beside you. This truth does not change with circumstance. It remains constant, steady, and unshaken. To understand that you are protected is to recognize that not every danger that could have reached you did. Life is full of unseen turns, unseen decisions, unseen timings that have spared you from harm. Protection is not always dramatic. It is often subtle, an instinct that tells you not to go, a hesitation that slows you down, an unexpected delay that redirects your steps. It is the closed door that frustrates you, only until you realize what it kept you from. Protection works quietly, gently, without needing to announce itself. You may never fully know how many unseen storms you have been spared, but the absence of those storms is itself the proof. Guidance works in a similar way. Not every moment of direction comes as a clear sign or a loud revelation. Sometimes it is the whisper of intuition, soft but persistent. Sometimes it is the discomfort that pushes you to leave a situation that no longer serves you. Sometimes it is the sudden clarity that arrives after confusion has lingered for far too long. Guidance lives in the inner knowing that does not shout but nudges. It appears in the patterns of your life, events that line up, moments that repeat, lessons that return until you understand them. Guidance is the invisible hand shaping your steps, ensuring you do not wander too far from the path meant for you. Being guided does not mean being controlled. You retain your free will, your choices, your responsibility, but you are not left directionless. When you listen inwardly, with patience, with honesty, with openness, you find that you are never without a compass. Sometimes the guidance feels like momentum, sometimes like resistance, but in both forms it pulls you toward what is aligned with truth. Even the detours become part of the guidance. Missteps become teachers. Delays become opportunities. What feels like loss often becomes redirection. To know that you are never alone is to understand that presence is not dependent on visibility. People often feel alone when those around them do not understand their pain, their thoughts, or their private struggles. But loneliness in feeling is not the same as being abandoned in truth. You carry within you a connection to something far deeper than any single relationship. Even when no one stands physically beside you, there is a strength that surrounds you, a clarity that watches over you, and a wisdom that flows toward you. Presence does not fade when you fall into doubt. It does not retreat when you feel unworthy. It does not withdraw when you struggle. It remains patient, unwavering, faithful. You are supported in ways you cannot always measure. Support appears in the resilience that rises within you when you think you have none left. It appears in the unexpected kindness of strangers, in the insights that arrive unannounced, in the courage that surfaces in moments where you believed you would break. Support is not always loud. It does not always come in the form of people or resources. Sometimes it appears as inner strength that was dormant until the moment you needed it. Sometimes it appears as the ability to endure, even when endurance feels impossible. Support is the quiet assurance that you can make it through what you currently face, because something stronger than your struggle is holding you up. This protection, this guidance, This presence does not promise a life free of hardship. Hardship is part of growth, part of learning, part of the unfolding of your soul. But hardship does not mean you walk unaccompanied. When you fall, you are lifted. When you hesitate, you are encouraged. When you wander, you are redirected. When you despair, you are reminded, sometimes gently, sometimes powerfully, that the story is not over. You are carried by a force that does not depend on your strength. It remains even when you feel weak. Think of the moments in your life when you felt you could not go on, and yet you did. Think of the times when you felt lost and somehow found your way. Think of the pain that softened, the confusion that cleared, the fear that faded. These were not accidents. These were signs of the protection and guidance that have always surrounded you. Even when you doubted it, even when you felt disconnected, the presence remained. You are part of something larger than your circumstances. You are woven into a pattern that extends beyond the present moment. What you face now is not the end of the story, nor is it the full picture. There are forces working on your behalf that you cannot yet see. There are solutions forming, opportunities being shaped, paths unfolding, even in this very moment, beyond the edges of your awareness. You are not static, your life is still moving. Even when you feel suspended in uncertainty, the movement continues. You are carried not by chance but by purpose. There is a direction to your life, even if you cannot see it yet. There is meaning in your journey, even if you have not uncovered it fully. There is strength within you that will rise when you call upon it. And there is a presence that will not let you fall beyond what you can survive. You may feel alone at times, but you are never alone in truth. Even in silence you are accompanied. Even in stillness you are supported. Even in darkness you are not abandoned. Something sees you, knows you, walks with you and holds you. Protection surrounds you. Guidance leads you. Presence accompanies you. And this remains true, even when you doubt it.